One of these days. One of these days. Pow! Right in the kisser.
There was a time when a single living room, a worn kitchen table, and the clatter of a city bus were enough to tell the whole American story. When The Honeymooners first aired in 1955, it didn't offer mansions or miracles. It offered cramped apartments, loud arguments, empty wallets, and something far more powerful. Ralph Kramden slammed doors and shouted dreams into the ceiling. Alice Kramden stood her ground with quiet strength and sharper wit. Ed Norton smiled his way through schemes that never quite worked. And somehow, in just 39 episodes, this short-lived sitcom became eternal. Behind the laughter were real struggles, behind the jokes were real marriages, and behind the scenes were stories few viewers ever knew. Tonight, we're stepping back into that Brooklyn apartment to uncover 10 rare, surprising, and deeply human facts about The Honeymooners, a show that lasted one season and echoed for generations. Fact number 10. The show that was never meant to last when Jackie Gleason stepped into Ralph Kramden's shoes. No one, least of all Gleason himself, believed The Honeymooners would become a weekly television series that surprises people today. But back then, The Honeymooners wasn't born as a sitcom at all. It began as a recurring sketch on the Jackie Gleason Show, performed live. No safety net, no retakes, just raw timing, sweat, and instinct. Gleason actually preferred it that way. He believed comedy should feel dangerous, like it might collapse at any moment. When CBS finally pushed for a full half-hour sitcom in 1955, Gleason hesitated. He worried that stretching Ralph and Alice into weekly stories would dilute the magic. He feared audiences would grow tired of the shouting, the fighting, the bus driver dreams that never quite came true. So he made a bold choice. He agreed to just one season only. 39 episodes, no renewal plan, no cliffhanger. That's why the show ends so abruptly. No farewell, no finale, just life. Continuing, and maybe that's why it worked, because The Honeymooners didn't overstay its welcome. It burned bright, fast, and honest like a moment. You'll remember clearly, even decades later. And while Gleason thought he was protecting his legacy, he accidentally created something timeless. Fact number 9. Alice Kramden was recast, and it changed everything. Before America ever met the sharp-tongued, unshakable Alice Kramden, she had another face. In the early live sketches, Alice was played by Pert Kelton, a gifted performer with a warm edge and Broadway polish. She helped create Alice. Her timing was perfect. Her chemistry with Jackie Gleason was real, but television in the early 1950s had a darker side. During the height of the Red Scare, Kelton's name appeared in Red Channels, an industry blacklist publication. No charges, no trial, just suspicion. That was enough. CBS quietly let her go. Enter Audrey Meadows. Meadows was younger, sharper, less theatrical, more real. She didn't play Alice as a long-suffering wife. She played her as an equal. Calm, observant, armed with intelligence rather than volume. And something extraordinary happened. When Ralph shouted, Alice didn't shrink. She waited, then delivered a single line and won the scene. That dynamic changed the soul of the show. Suddenly, The Honeymooners wasn't about a man dominating his household. It was about a marriage messy, loud, loving, but balanced. Years later, Meadows admitted she insisted Alice never be portrayed as weak. No crying in corners, no fear. Alice would stand her ground every time, and audiences felt it. In an era when sitcom wives were expected to smile and submit, Alice Kramden quietly rewrote the rules, one raised eyebrow at a time. But while Alice grounded the show, there was another character who floated above it all. A sewer worker, a dreamer, and the heart of the comedy itself. Fact number 8, Ed Norton was almost cut until one line saved him. At first glance, Ed Norton felt like comic relief. The goofy best friend, the man with the sideways grin and impossible optimism. But behind that smile was a surprise even the producers didn't expect. Art Carney wasn't hired as a permanent cast member. In early plans, Norton was meant to appear occasionally a side character who wandered in and out of Ralph's life. Then came the line. During a live sketch rehearsal, Carney delivered a casual, offhand phrase, "Helu ball," with such innocent confidence that the room erupted.
Hello, ball.
It wasn't just funny, it was human. Carney played Norton, not as a fool, but as a man who believed deeply that things would work out, even when they never did. Especially then. Suddenly, the show had balance. Ralph was explosive frustration, Alice was grounded realism. And Norton, he was hope, misplaced, cheerful, and endlessly loyal. Producers quickly realized something powerful. Without Norton, Ralph was just angry. With Norton, Ralph was relatable, a man who dreamed bigger than his circumstances, encouraged by a friend, who never stopped believing. Art Carney's physical comedy, the hat tips, the slow turns, the off-rhythm walk, became iconic. But it was his warmth that made Norton unforgettable. Years later, Carney would win an Academy Award for Harry and Tonto, but many fans still remember him best as the sewer worker with the biggest heart in Brooklyn. And yet, for all the laughter, there was one moment that nearly ended the show forever. Fact number 7. One of these days almost got the show canceled. It's the line everyone remembers. Ralph Kramden, fist shaking, voice booming. One of these days, pow, right in the kisser.
One of these days. One of these days. Pow! Right in the kisser.
Today, it plays like exaggerated frustration, cartoonish. But in 1955, it nearly ended the Honeymooners for good. Television was still young, networks were nervous, and some viewers took Ralph's words literally. Letters poured into CBS, accusing the show of promoting domestic violence. Sponsors worried, executives panicked. There were serious internal discussions about whether Ralph Kramden had gone too far. Here's the crucial detail most people miss. Ralph never hit Alice, not once, not in rehearsal, not in performance, not even implied. Audrey Meadows was firm about this. Alice Kramden would never be afraid. And Ralph's bluster was always undercut, usually by Alice's calm stare, or a single devastatingly intelligent comeback. The tension wasn't physical, it was emotional, and it reflected something real working-class frustration in post-war America, where men were told to dream big, but given very little room to do it. Eventually, CBS allowed the line to stay with strict conditions. It had to be exaggerated. It had to be clearly comic, and Alice always had to win the moment. Ironically, the line became iconic, not because of violence, but because audiences recognized the truth underneath it. Ralph wasn't dangerous, he was defeated, and America understood that. But while viewers worried about what Ralph might do, the real danger was happening somewhere else. Because The Honeymooners wasn't filmed safely in soundstage at first, it was performed live. Fact number 6. The live episodes were a real-life high-wire act, before the familiar comfort of filmed reruns. The Honeymooners lived dangerously. Many early episodes were performed live, broadcast straight into American homes with no second takes, and no safety net. If a line was missed, a prop dropped, or a joke fell flat, the country saw it happen in real time. And sometimes, things went wrong. Sets wobbled, props broke, cues were missed. Once, a door jammed just seconds before a big entrance. Jackie Gleason didn't panic. He adjusted ad-libbing his way through the scene with pure instinct. That was Gleason's gift. He treated mistakes not as disasters, but as opportunities for truth. Art Carney, too, thrived under pressure. His physical comedy often came from reacting to the unexpected. A chair in the wrong place, a mistimed pause. What looked rehearsed was often survival. This live-wire approach gave the Honeymooners something rare even today: authentic tension. Viewers could feel it. You weren't just watching characters argue, you were watching performers balance timing, memory, and nerves, all at once. That's why the show feels so alive, so immediate, so human. It wasn't polished perfection. It was controlled chaos, and America leaned forward because of it. But there was another reason the show felt so real. Because Ralph Kramden's frustrations weren't just written, they were lived. Fact number 5. Ralph Kramden was Jackie Gleason closer than anyone admitted. Ralph Kramden's anger, his pride, his endless schemes, they didn't come from a writer's room alone. They came from Jackie Gleason himself. Gleason grew up poor in Brooklyn. His father abandoned the family when Jackie was still a boy. His mother worked tirelessly, and money was always tight. That sense of insecurity of wanting more, but never quite reaching it, stayed with him for life. Ralph's dreams of success weren't jokes, they were echoes. When Ralph talked about striking it rich, opening a business, or finally being respected, Gleason understood that hunger personally. He knew the embarrassment of counting pennies. the pride of wanting dignity, the frustration of feeling stuck while the world moved on without you. That's why Ralph never felt like a cartoon. Yes, he shouted. Yes, he exaggerated. But beneath it was a man terrified of failure, desperate to be seen as more than just a bus driver in a small apartment. Gleason once said he didn't play Ralph as a bully, he played him as a man afraid of being invisible. And Alice, she wasn't there to endure him, she was there to anchor him. That emotional honesty is why audiences forgave Ralph's flaws. They recognized him, maybe in a husband, maybe in a neighbor, maybe even in themselves. But while Gleason poured his soul into the role, the cost of creating that honesty was enormous, because perfection was demanded relentlessly. Fact number 4. Jackie Gleason's perfectionism nearly broke the cast. Working on the Honeymooners wasn't just acting, it was endurance. Jackie Gleason demanded absolute precision. Timing had to be exact, pauses mattered, reactions mattered. If a joke didn't land perfectly, Gleason felt it wasn't honest, and honesty was everything to him. Scenes were rehearsed again, and again, and again, not because he wanted control, but because he believed comedy was sacred. If audiences were going to laugh at working people like Ralph Kramden, then the truth of those lives had to be respected. Nothing sloppy, nothing fake. For the cast, that pressure was intense. Art Carney later admitted that performing opposite Gleason felt like standing next to a thunderstorm, thrilling but exhausting. One misstep, one mistimed movement, and the rhythm could collapse. Gleason wouldn't yell, he didn't have to. His silence was louder than words. Audrey Meadows handled it differently. She matched him with calm professionalism, often grounding scenes when Gleason's energy threatened to overwhelm them. That quiet balance kept the show from tipping into chaos. Ironically, the very thing that made The Honeymooners great, its precision also made it unsustainable. The pace couldn't last forever. The tension couldn't be maintained week after week, and that strain would soon lead to a decision that shocked audiences. Because despite its success, despite its popularity, The Honeymooners was about to disappear. Fact number 3. The show ended at its peak by choice. In 1956, The Honeymooners was a hit. Ratings were strong. Characters were beloved. Catchphrases echoed through American living rooms, and then it was gone. No cancellation announcement, no dramatic farewell, just silence. The decision came from Jackie Gleason himself. Gleason believed comedy had a shelf life. He feared repetition more than obscurity. He didn't want Ralph Kramden to become a parody of himself, a man shouting the same frustrations week after week with no growth. No honesty left, so he walked away. Instead of renewing the series, Gleason folded The Honeymooners back into the Jackie Gleason Show, airing occasional lost episodes and specials over the years. In his mind, that preserved the characters, froze them in time. It confused audiences, it frustrated the network, but it protected the legacy. Those 39 filmed episodes became everything. No filler, no decline, no awkward late seasons. Just a perfect, contained portrait of marriage, friendship, and working-class life. Ironically, by ending early, The Honeymooners gained immortality. But something even more surprising happened after it ended. The show didn't fade away. Fact number 2, reruns turned The Honeymooners into a legend. When The Honeymooners ended its short original run, it didn't feel like history in the making. It felt unfinished. But then something rare happened, something no one in 1956 could have predicted: reruns. As television expanded across America in the late 1950s and 60s, stations needed reliable programming. Affordable, familiar, universal. The Honeymooners fit perfectly. Those same 39 episodes began airing again and again and again, and each time they found a new audience. Parents recognized their own struggles in Ralph and Alice. Kids laughed at the shouting without fully understanding the pain beneath it. Grandparents nodded quietly, knowing exactly where those arguments came from, because the stories didn't age. Money problems, unfulfilled dreams. Marriage as a partnership, not a fantasy. The simplicity of the set became a strength. Without topical jokes or flashy trends, the show felt timeless. Brooklyn could have been anywhere. Ralph could have been anyone. By the time cable television arrived, The Honeymooners was no longer just a sitcom. It was a cultural reference point. Comedians studied it. Writers borrowed its rhythms. Actors learned that silence could be funnier than shouting. Jackie Gleason once said he was amazed the show lasted at all. He never imagined it would last forever. But while the audience kept growing, There was one truth hiding beneath all that laughter. Fact number 1. Alice Kramden quietly changed television wives forever. For years, people remembered the Honeymooners as Ralph's show. The shouting, the schemes, the famous lines. But time has a way of sharpening the truth, because the real revolution lived in Alice Kramden. In the 1950s, television wives were often written as soft, submissive, or invisible. Problems were smoothed over with smiles. Husbands led. Wives followed. Alice didn't. Played with steady intelligence by Audrey Meadows. Alice Kramden never raised her voice because she didn't need to. She worked when needed. She spoke her mind. She loved Ralph, but never surrendered herself to him. That balance mattered. Decades later, television historians would point to Alice as a blueprint, a woman who could challenge her husband without humiliating him and love him without losing herself. She wasn't waiting to be rescued. She was choosing the life she had, eyes open. Audrey Meadows once said she insisted Alice always win morally, even if Ralph won the argument. And she did, every time. That's why the Honeymooners endures. Not because of shouting, but because of equality hidden inside it. Because beneath the jokes was a marriage built on honesty, frustration, loyalty, and respect.